As time flows on like an endless stream, we gather to build a world we dream.
Greetings and welcome to this episode of The Way of Tech. When I was a kid, most tools were still analog. We didn't learn keypads, software, or code because computers and smartphones didn't exist yet, at least not for us. Instead, we hacked together scraps of wood and spare parts to build forts, go-karts, cardboard wings, and other imaginative contraptions, perhaps dangerous contraptions, at least at times. And to do that, we had to learn a very basic rule. Stop fighting the tool and start using it. Today we have nail guns, electric saws, and all kinds of power tools, but back then, a simple hammer, a handsaw, and a handful of rusty nails pulled and straightened from scrap piles were enough to bring our ideas to life. Still, the proper use of our simple tools was not intuitive to us. Our instinct was to grip tightly and apply as much force as possible. But this approach quickly becomes painful and exhausting. Anyone who's spent an afternoon white-knuckling a hammer knows this. The better way is to hold the tool loosely, allow the weight of the hammer's head or the jagged teeth of the saw to do most of the work, while applying as little force as possible. When we stop fighting the tool and start working with it, it becomes more effective, the task becomes easier, and we get more done. The same lesson applies today, only now our tools are more powerful than ever before, obviously. Modern tools don't just amplify human muscle, they amplify human thought. Software algorithms and artificial intelligence are systems with their own strengths, limitations, and ways of operating. And yet some approach them like inexperienced kids fighting their hammers and saws, gripping too tightly, forcing outcomes, and becoming frustrated when the tools don't behave as expected. Consider artificial intelligence, for example. New users often create complex prompts with too many details, not trusting the tool to do what it does best. More experienced technologists, or let's call them prompt engineers, quickly learn something different, that the best results usually come from collaboration rather than control. That is, working with AI by being more concise, iteration, and allowing it to take it from there. The results may seldom turn out exactly as expected, but in my experience, they're usually even better than expected in ways that I alone would never have even thought of. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus expressed this principle long before modern technology existed. In the simplest of terms, Epictetus stated the obvious. Some things are in our power, and some things are not in our power. And wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Too many of us get this backwards by obsessing about what we can't control while neglecting what we can. Perhaps even more valuable is that there are things we should not try to control, even if we can, like the wills and minds of other people, for example, because that's dehumanizing. People are complicated, and we mustn't treat them like simple extensions of ourselves. We need to collaborate with them, trust them to do their part, then see what we end up with, co-creating. That's just one example of how this principle, stop fighting the tool and start using it, can be applied to everyday life. For we often fight what's happening in our lives the same way we fight our tools, by gripping too tightly, exhausting ourselves, only to end up being disappointed with the results. When we try to completely control outcomes, circumstances, and other people, we usually end up disappointed. Too often we push when we should be listening. We force when we should be learning. Yet through it all, we confuse these efforts with wisdom and strength. But when we stop fighting and start trusting the tools and the people in our lives to do their part, something shifts. We can focus our energy on what is actually within our power, like our choices, our attention, our attitude, and our responses. When we let go of what we can't or should not control, we find more joy in the process and marvel over the results. far more than attempts at complete control and brute force ever provide. Our world is changing rapidly, and our tools are evolving faster than our know-how. The challenge is not to overpower them, but to let them empower us by trusting them to help us be even more creative and productive than we can possibly be without them. The way of tech reminds us that wisdom is not about strength or control, it's about trust, imagination, and openness to new possibilities. Whether it's a hammer, an AI system, or a situation in our lives, when we stop fighting the tool and start using it, we discover that much of the struggle we thought was necessary never was.
Started out a boy in my daddy's old shed, a white oak shave and sawdust in my head, gripping that handle till my knuckles turned white, bent every nail in the board that night. He said, son, that hammer ain't a stone in your fist. You're fighting the swing and the nail just twists. Let the weight do the work, just guide it true. You ain't breaking the board, it's working with you. A hammer in my hand, with my heart letting go. Loosen up the grip and the grain starts to show. Every board, every bend, every line I don't control builds a little house for this wandering soul. Hammer in my hand, but I'm riding the flow. Years down the line on a roof in the rain, rushing every measure just to outrun the pain. Plans got soaked, sky turned black. One hard gust and the ladder pushed back. Sitting on the tailgate staring at the mud, blueprints bleeding in a coffee-stained flood. I laughed for the first time in a long, long while. Felt my shoulders drop, felt my jawbone smile. Every beam I forced came out a little off square. Every door I slammed stuck tight in the air. But the frames I eased found their place in the wall. When I stopped being bigger than the tools I call. Now when life shakes like a 2x4, I don't drive each second like I did before. I just take my place at the workbench of days. Let the rhythm swing in its own sweet way. Hammer in my hand as the daylight goes. Shavings on the floor like a trail in the glow. I hum a little tune only Cedar would know. Hands resting easy, just going with the flow.